Record to the cloud. Okay. Hello, Nancy Bullard. Nancy Bullard, aka Mrs. B, is our guest for today's Cam Chat. And our team became big fans of Mrs. B's TikTok channel. We read about her in Charlotte Agenda a while back when our quarantine life began. And she is the science lab teacher at Huntingtowne Farms Elementary here in Charlotte. She's been there for about 7 years, and we loved the way that she was bringing the excitement of science and her classroom into our homes via her TikTok channel and other social media platforms. So we reached out to her, and we're so happy that she's agreed to join us for a brief Cam Chat today. Mrs. B, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Well, we love the imagination that you bring to the digital world and just want to know a little bit about where that comes from. What did you want to be when you grew up, when you were a kid, and how does that compare to what actually happened?
I wanted to be a doctor for a while. When I went into college at Wake Forest, that was kind of my thought process. And then I got there and I just kind of realized like I was drawn to work with kids. I have the ability to work with kids and I had a desire to work with kids. And that was really confirmed when I took a trip to Russia and worked in an orphanage in Russia.
Wow.
So coming back from that trip, I was like, you know what? I'm changing my major. I need to do education. And that also led me to apply for Teach for America. And so my first teaching job was in Jacksonville, Florida, teaching through Teach for America. And then I moved back to Charlotte, or I moved to Charlotte. I'm from North Carolina. And so now I am in a long line of North Carolina public school teachers. I'm a fourth generation North Carolina public school teacher.
Love
so
that.
I think I'm exactly where I need to be.
Now, your other relatives who are also North Carolina public educators, are they science teachers as well?
My mom was a science teacher. She was my science teacher. And my grandmother taught physical education. So that could be science related if you want to talk about the human body and stuff like that.
Well, I love that. I love that that is a part of your heritage, and I love that you're carrying on the family tradition. Can you tell us about some of the most defining moments in your career or even as an educator?
Yeah, well, obviously I just mentioned my mom. Having her as a teacher was definitely a defining moment. That opened my eyes to a lot of this. That was kind of the first time my eyes were open to things that teachers have to deal with that you don't always think about. And so I developed a lot of respect for my mom after having her as a mom for so many years, but then getting the chance to have her as a teacher. And then just growing up with a mom who is a science teacher, that shaped who I am today. We were always exploring and hiking, and she was, just finding science in the everyday thing. So I was always interested in science. And then I had the opportunity my second year of teaching to teach exclusively third grade science, which was a very unique position. But the third grade team I was teaching on went through some changes, and we realized here's the English teacher, here's the math teacher, and we need you to be the science teacher. And from that point on, I was like, this is amazing. I want to teach this exclusively all the time. And so that was when I really knew, like, I can do this. I enjoy doing this. And I would love to just be a science teacher.
And do you get to see all of the K-5 students at Huntingtowne?
I do, yes. So I see every student about on a weekly basis. So my science lab works in the same way as the PE teacher, music teacher, art teacher. Probably when you were in school, you rotated through those classes, and I'm part of that team. So I'm considered a special. So a student might have PE on Monday and then science on Tuesday and then art on Wednesday. So
Okay. Oh, I love that. I love that. I know that they're always excited to come in there. It's always fun to be in the lab. Tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced in your field and how you've met those.
I mean, I could talk about the COVID-19 challenges, but everybody, that's not just the teaching field, that's the world field right now. But I think in a typical school year, a typical science classroom, the biggest challenge for an elementary school science teacher is that this subject gets pushed to the back burner because the state mandated tests focus on English and math. And so when you don't emphasize the importance of science through a state test, it just doesn't get taught. And it makes sense. If I was a teacher and I'm being evaluated on how well my students do on these tests, I'm going to focus my energy on, getting kids prepared to succeed on those exams. So for me, I just find so many students are coming to school with such limited background knowledge on basic science concepts.
Right.
And so it's cool to be in a position where you can teach them these things for the very first time. But yeah, unfortunately, the school culture and climate right now does not have a big science focus. I think we've made a lot of progress in the past decade, even with this push for STEM and STEAM and these magnet schools popping up with a STEM focus. And so I think that's really important. I also think it's amazing that Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools has positions available for people like me, where they're going to dedicate a whole class to nothing but hands-on science. So we are making progress. But what I would love to see more than anything is science being focused on just as much as math and reading, because I think it's a subject that is super important and deserves that time.
Yes, definitely. And I love that you said that, because that's one of the things as we work to develop a new museum, we want to be able to better support teachers like you and that classroom learning and provide those hands-on experiences, even if it's not in a field trip, even if it's not through an outreach program. We're working really hard to hear feedback from people like you. That's so valuable, so we can incorporate your voice into what we're building. So I love that you're dedicated to hands-on science. More science.
I know. That's what I want.
Mrs. B, tell me about your favorite part of your job.
My favorite part is the favorite part of all the students as well. It's the activities, it's the hands-on stuff, the explosions, and we hatch baby chicks in the science lab every year. I get to do all the fun stuff. And so, I mean, that's definitely my favorite part. It's the kids' favorite part. Their reactions are priceless. And you might think that fifth graders are like big kids, but no, they have just as much fun and have just as hilarious reactions to baking soda and vinegar mixing together as the kindergartners do. So seeing their reactions and doing those fun experiments, that's definitely the best part of the job.
I love it. Is there a favorite experiment, or is there one that everyone always looks forward to that's like legendary?
The hatching chicks is definitely the I guess you can call it an experience that everyone looks forward to every year. But then we also do I turn my classroom into a restaurant called the Chemical Change Cafe, when we learn about matter, and we cook pancakes and hot chocolate. So they really love that. And then, I don't know, we do everything. We make slime, we dissect owl pellets, we go on a hike around the nature trail, we make balloon rockets. I mean, you name it, we're always doing something crazy in the science lab. So there's a lot of fun going on.
I love it. I love it. So besides the baby chicks, do you have any critters in there?
Yeah, yes and no. I have some critters that are not alive. They are preserved.
Okay.
I do not have any sort of class pet. But every now and then, Discovery Place might come by and bring some cool animals. What I do every year is we hike our school's nature trail, and we always see organisms out there, whether it's salamanders hiding under the rocks or ducks swimming around the little stream. But no class pets in the science lab.
Okay. Oh, I love it. What's the weirdest thing that's in your classroom?
I think some of the specimens, some of the preserved animals are kind of weird. I have everything from like a baby shark and a pufferfish to these little baby kittens that I guess died relatively soon after they were born, and they were preserved. And they look like little lions. Like it's really cool. You can still see all their features. Probably the weirdest one though is the sea slug. It's definitely the one I get the most questions about. Students, it's just an animal that they're not very familiar with and have never seen before. And so that's pretty cool.
And a sea slug is big, right? It's not like a little backyard slug we're seeing right now. Aren't they big?
Yeah, it's probably about 3 to 4 times as big as like your typical house backyard slug. But yeah, it just looks really strange and it's bumpy. So anyways, the kids love it and they're just kind of confused by it. But anyway.
I love that the lab is always the place where you can explore those curiosities of nature.
Definitely.
I love it. Well, we mentioned a little bit before we hit record that you've been to Carolina's Aviation Museum before as part of Project Scientist, which is a program that we love. Do you have a favorite airplane at CAM that you loved seeing when you were there?
The Sully plane was the highlight of my visit to the Carolina Aviation Museum. When we visited, I had just recently watched the movie with Tom Hanks and read so much about that whole crash and experience. And so to be able to see that plane, that was amazing.
Yes, and you're not prepared for it. The first time that I walked in and saw it, and it really is overwhelming. You think, how can an airplane be, I mean, they are a big deal and they're big entities, but we do see them quite a bit and you think, oh, it's just going to be looking at a plane, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, it was a very, very cool visit. I hope that once all this pandemic is over, Project Scientists can get back and see you guys again, because that definitely stuck out in my mind. One of our expeditions.
We love to hear that. We're so proud of that aircraft, and it's in storage right now. I saw it not long ago, and we are working hard to preserve it and hopefully have some experiences soon in our new facility that we're working on. So I love that you have that special memory. That's a crowd favorite among our aircraft. Sure. Can you tell me a little bit, speaking of heroes, right, of Sully, who are some of your heroes?
Any female scientist is a hero of mine.
Yeah.
Any female science teacher is a hero of mine. Project Scientist is kind of infamous for doing this Draw a Scientist study where they bring in girls at the beginning of camp and tell them to draw a scientist. And 9 times out of 10, they're drawing these Einstein male science figures. And then by the end of camp, they repeat the experiment and they're drawing themselves and they're drawing women in the pictures. And so that's awesome. I think it's so important that kids have female science teachers and see female scientists. So those are my heroes. And then, of course, Michelle Obama and Ellen and Beyonce.
Yes, definitely. And I think they all love science too.
I'm sure they do.
I love it. Great answer. That's a great answer. Well, tell me a little bit. We love to ask folks in our CAM chats about where you like to travel. What are some of your favorite places that you've traveled to?
So domestically, my husband and I go to New York a couple of times a year. We have family and friends up there. And from Charlotte, super easy, cheap flight. So we love doing Manhattan and New York City. Internationally, we did our honeymoon in Vienna, Austria, which my husband had an opportunity to study abroad there when he was in law school. And so we got to go back together, which was really awesome. We've done London, which, oh, if you've been to London, you know, it's just amazing. I think Europe in general, I'm just very fascinated by European culture and the history that exists there. So
Yes.
yeah, so there you go.
So it sounds like you and your husband definitely have the wanderlust. You love to get out and see the world.
Yeah, he was a history major, so anywhere that we can go that has a pretty rich history, I can convince him pretty easily that we should take a trip there.
I like that. I like that. Well, tell us a little bit about, this is our final question for everyone in our cam chats. What items are always in your carry-on bag?
Books. You can see my bookshelf
Yes.
behind me. I'm a pretty avid reader, and I feel like a plane ride is the perfect chance to knock out a lot of chapters. So that's definitely my carry-on staple.
Yes, I love it. Are you a Kindle person or a real book person?
I'm a real book person. I think we keep the Charlotte Public Library busy, especially during the summer when we have a little bit of downtime. So yeah, I don't know. There's something about a real book that I really enjoy.
Same. While we're talking, I've just gotten a text from my library branch that they have something on hold for me, which is always so exciting to get your library
love those
text.
notifications.
I love it. So tell me what you're reading now, or what's on your summer reading list, if you have one.
Yeah, I just finished Emily Giffen's new book.
Love her.
She's one of my favorites, and she went to Wake Forest, so we both attended.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so and there's little Wake Forest golden nuggets in all of her books that you can look for. So she's definitely one of my favorites. Now I'm reading The Woman in the Window. I just picked that up. And then next on my list is American Dirt. So
I read about American Dirt today. Oh, love it.
So there you go. That's my
that's your to be read pile.
Exactly.
Well, I am so happy to meet you personally. You have really lit up our lives via TikTok and Instagram throughout the quarantine. It has given our staff so much hope and energy to see teachers like you doing whatever it takes to reach kids during this unprecedented, weird time. And your enthusiasm just shines, and it's great to talk to you. And I hope that we'll see you at CAM soon, but until then, it sounds like I'll probably run into you at the library.
Probably. That was so sweet. Thank you so much for having me and for helping promote science and strong women. I'm so happy to do this and to meet you today.
Yeah, well, same. And thank you so much for being a part of our CAM chat. And we just wish you a great summer, and we hope to see you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, Mrs. B.